why have you taken this step? Because it's a big thing to be in a council position.
Yes. You know, I can start off with the cliched, I want to contribute, I want to make a difference, and I truly do. You know, I'm looking at my most important constituency, which is my son and my family, and I want to make sure I can contribute, and with the cooperation of other people in Fairfield, to contribute and develop a community that we can all be proud of and allow us to each pursue our individual definitions of liberty. Right now I don't see that happening. I think there's some lack of representation on the City Council, and I think there are areas of Fairfield that are not adequately represented, and I want to be able to speak up and fight and be an advocate for all the people of Fairfield so we can all equally have the chance to pursue our definition of liberty.
There's also a discrepancy where council members live. I think you're the only one this side of I-80.
Yes. So right now, our city council members all live in the 94534 zip code, which is basically north or west of Highway 80. The entire area of Cordelia Villages, as well as the entire 94533 zip code, does not have any representation on the city council. I think that's lopsided. I think there should be a representation from all areas of Fairfield. One solution to permanently codify that is that we can go to district representation. Our school districts have gone to district representation in response to lawsuits about the Voting Rights Act. In addition, cities across the state are actually migrating to district representation. The most recent one is in fact Dixon, just up the highway. In May they migrated to district representation. This does not require a public vote. The City Council can agree to keep the same number of representatives, four council members and a mayor in our case, and break it up into 4 unique districts that at least everyone would have their council person. Right now, if you ask city council members, everyone works for everyone. And you don't have, regardless of where you sit or live, you don't have your council member. And by having it broken down into specific districts, one person would represent 25,000 people, and it's more likely that that person lives in your neighborhood and will experience the same challenges that you do: homelessness, crime, potholes, other lack of services. And then as a customer, you would have your representative to contact. You don't have to worry about someone else passing the buck. You have your person, and when it comes down to election time, you know who you can hold accountable.
That also brings up the other subject to where we have police officers who do not live here. What's the percentage of that?
In my research, it's a very low percentage. It's definitely below 25%. Many of them live in Vacaville or other communities. In addition, many of our senior staff on our city staff do not live in Fairfield, including our police chief, our fire chief, and our city manager. Now, I can't force them to live in Fairfield, nor would I want to, but the fact that they don't want to speaks highly of what's going on in Fairfield. I think in addition to just being financially invested from the city government, I think they need to start being emotionally invested in the community that they serve. Otherwise, Fairfield can be perceived as just a paycheck, and I don't want public servants to view Fairfield as a public paycheck, particularly when 75% of our general fund goes to salary and related benefits.
So that means those people are getting money from Fairfield and going back to their home city,
right,
and spending that money for buying a house.
That is correct. But you know, also from, say, an emergency happens to California, earthquake or whatnot, you know, if a disaster happens either in Fairfield or nearby, what is our service level time that we expect from our emergency responders and other key city staff? If they are in other communities, will they be able to rush back to Fairfield and help the people of Fairfield? So,
or would they go home?
You know, and I'm not going to question their motives. I'm just looking from a, you know, physical laws of the physics. Can they get here in time if, say, Highway 80 is jammed up? We can look at Highway 80 on any 5 o'clock weekday or weekend and see the traffic jam, and those just are tourists. If the emergencies happen and everyone is forced or wants to flee San Francisco Bay Area because of earthquakes or whatever disaster, you know, that road is going to be overwhelmed. Will our first responders and other key personnel be able to get back here to assist Fairfieldians in their time of need?
So you're an accountant, aren't you?
I have a finance background. That's my college degree, bachelor's in finance, but also I have a master's in operations and supply chain management.
So that would benefit when we see so many politicians are involved in spend.
Right.
And so you're one fiscal responsibility,
yes,
much more. What's happening with my dollar?
Yeah. So that's my, you know, I like the numbers. I review charts, I review numbers. That's what I do at my workplace to make sure if we're going to undertake a project or spend money, I look at the numbers and I have to justify those expenditures to my customers, i.e. my boss, or my actual end customers. I want to make sure that we make business decisions. Just like here we are in a small business, and they have the same decision. Do I hire a new person, or do I contract it out? Do I buy new equipment, or should I rent it? Should I remain in Fairfield? Should I go down somewhere else where the customer base is better or the area is safer? So any proposal that comes across my desk, I'm going to ask and make those questions. I think right now there's just the default that it's easier to go buy a new truck rather than can we add a couple more miles to an existing truck. As an example, this year the City Council approved the purchase of a brand new city-owned garbage truck for $158,000. And I asked, why do we need to own our own garbage truck plus the maintenance budget when we have a perfectly competent garbage company nearby that has proven to be very community-oriented? I don't think I want the least amount of government it takes to provide us the services that we want. And I don't think the city government, particularly when they have demonstrated that they can't maintain potholes, should be in the business of garbage collection. So anytime an offer comes down our road, I will ask those questions. Can someone else do it? In the case of the garbage truck, could we, when we need that garbage truck, in fact, hire some small businesses in the community, such as haulers or other services, and let them. That would empower small business and get the city out of maintaining a garbage truck 365 days a year.
So you're for smaller government?
Small. I want the least amount of government it takes. There are some instances where I could see that government is in fact the best solution, okay? But they need to justify that. Again, if we view government, especially at our local government, as a service provider, then we start viewing ourselves as consumers. And I believe when people act as consumers, they're a lot more rational. When you talk to your cable company or your phone company, you're going to be, shaking your fist demanding the best value for your dollar. We should take that attitude towards all levels of government as well and demand the best service.
Good. So what other areas are we looking at?
So, obviously the hot topic issue this year is homelessness. And it's a tough case to really crack. You want to be respectful and compassionate to some of these poor souls. One thing I think we've done erroneously is that we've lumped all these people into a bucket we call the homeless, and we try to come up with a one-size-fits-all solution. But homelessness, when we see the people on the street, there's mental health issues, there's addiction issues, there's vagrants and panhandlers, there's criminals out there, and there's some, and I think it's a small group, that are the situational homeless, where they were working hard and because of economic issues they lost their house and they're on the street. And that's the people I want to help. But also I want to make sure we're helping local people, the Fairfields. If they're my brothers and sisters in my community, then I have no doubt that this community rallied to help them. Unfortunately, I think a combination of really generous people, nice weather, we have magnets in the community that are causing and compelling some out-of-towners to come in, either on their own accord, but also I suspect that some cities may be either encouraging or dropping them off in our city, and I want to put an end to that. We have some shelters and other programs in this community. I don't think they're actually working together. I think everyone has good intentions, but they're individually siloed. And so if I'm homeless and I'm trying to get stuff for me, I can work the system. I'll go to your church on Tuesday, I'll go to his community shelter on Wednesday, and I can do a route. There's no dedicated coordination that says, how do we get this person back on the street, but also if this person's not willing to subscribe to these programs to help themselves, it's time for them to move along. Honestly, I feel some people have turned fighting homelessness into a business, into an industry, and I don't want Fairfield to be having homeless incorporated as one of our key industries.
Good.
So, as far as
doing business in Fairfield is not always easy. You've got heavy regulation. And when I owned a business here in Fairfield for a number of years, I never had a council member coming down and say, "How are you doing?"
Right. I'm a big fan of, at work or wherever I go, I'm very customer oriented. Even at work, even at the most mundane report that I get requested for, I want to make sure that the requester got whatever value they were seeking, not just I delivered a report, have a nice day. I passed that law, have a nice day. What I want to be able to do is, the people that inhabit City Hall, I want them to be out in the field. Again, one of the issues that not living in Fairfield, they're not participating in our local economy. They're not rubbing elbows with the people of Fairfield, other than in organized, almost scripted events. I want them to be, if you live in our community, you're going down to that coffee shop, you're going to the auto repair store, and you're interacting. And in those natural interactions, you're going to get natural feedback. Hey, you're doing this well. Hey, not so well. As far as the challenges of dealing, being a small business, between California's oppressive rules, the county's oppressive rules, and the city's oppressive rules, it's got to be a very big chore. And at least I can cover 1/3 of that triumvirate and make it easy. If the city's coming down to a business, a home-based business or a more involved business, such as an auto repair shop, when they demand a permit or a fee, they need to be able to demonstrate why it's needed. If you're adding a second story to a house, or you're adding a new connection to the grid, you're impacting the grid, and I think you should pay the fair cost of that impact to the grid. But if you're just repaving your driveway or replacing an air conditioning unit, you're not impacting the grid, and I don't think you should be being forced to get a permit and a fee for that. You're not impacting negatively. Keep that money in your pocket, because I think a couple $100 here and there, that's a difference maker, for the senior housing person who wants to refresh their AC, or the small business person that could either hire a new person or buy some local equipment, or they have to pay a fee. I truly believe that $1 in the private sector will go a lot further than $1 in the public sector.
Good. So, are you accepting money from unions?
I am not. It hasn't been offered, but I probably would not accept it, especially with a public sector union. I believe there's a conflict of interest that the organization that I will probably be negotiating with on behalf of the people of Fairfield have previously given money to some of our city council members and other candidates. And to me, that's a conflict of interest, and we need to stop that.
So, how do you feel your chances of becoming, if you're not involved with unions, or you're not embedded with some group who is going to promote you, and then you have to pay them back somehow,
Right.
with some sort of gratis of some sort. So what are your chances of becoming a council person? Because so far we've had so many people who've been supported by the police, the teachers, and other types of groups like that.
Even with this race, there's thousands of dollars from assorted unions and public servant groups. And it's very discouraging, and I encourage all voters to ask other candidates, hey, when you accepted X thousand dollars from this group or that group, what was the expected return on investment? Because when I'm throwing $1,000 at anything, it's not just for the pure altruism in my heart. There's an expected return on investment of some sort. Ask what that is. If I ever get contributions of over $1,000, I always ask the question, like, I appreciate this, but what is the expectation? Thus far, out of the 4 candidates, we have 4 candidates for 2 seats this year. Out of the 4 candidates, I am 4th as far as fundraising. The leading incumbent has raised over $25,000, and all that information is publicly. You can see the who's who of contributing there, and there's a lot of familiar groups and a lot of familiar names. And so my question, I encourage all the voters to say, hey, when you got $25,000 from all these certain people, what was the expectation? And also, you've been in office for 8 years, what's the next 4 years going to be? And also, I ask all the voters of Fairfield to look at yourself in the mirror and ask, are you better off? Both from a business standpoint, a personal standpoint, do you have confidence and pride in Fairfield? And that's one thing I've seen lacking. It's very disappointing to go to some people who have lived in Fairfield for decades and refer to Fairfield as ghetto. Because if you're not emotionally invested in the town, it's going to be very difficult to get someone to financially invest in the town. So we need to change that around. As far as not playing ball, if you will, I made the commitment. I did this 2 years ago. I had 11 people for 2 seats, and so mathematically the numbers are better. But my message remains the same, and my personal commitment both to myself, because I'm going to be looking at myself in the mirror and say, you know what? Win, lose, or draw, I followed the campaign that I felt was honorable and responsible and respectful. And again, win, lose, or draw, I can feel comfortable how I ran this race.
I would like to know what you're going to do about that shooting range over here the police department get to use and we can't use it.
So the police training facility.
Yes, it is.
So that was a facility that was paid for by the taxpayers, to empower the police to train for different scenarios. And all right, I think the people of Fairfield said that's a worthy investment. However, my viewpoint of the police is public safety officials as opposed to law enforcement officials. And there's a big nuance in that. When you're a law enforcement official, you have the law, you have this list, and you run around to make sure people are complying with the law. Whereas when you're a public safety official, your focus is the public and their safety. And I believe that it's, fighting crime and empowering people to be more safe is a well-rounded solution. Now, rather than just counting on the police to come rushing to your aid in your time of need, I believe empowering people to protect themselves in that time of need. And each person has a different level of safety and comfort that they want to pursue. If it's just a neighborhood watch program and you know how to buy a couple extra locks for your house or property, that's fine. But if you want to take a little more proactive approach, say with pepper spray or martial arts or even a firearm of some sort, I believe that we have the facilities, we have the equipment, and we have the knowledgeable personnel in our police department that can impart that knowledge and empower the people to protect themselves. That's how we're going to win the war on crime. It's not going to be more cops. It's going to, for Fairfield to develop a reputation that the people of Fairfield aren't going to put up with crap that decides to slither into this community. If we get the street rep that, wow, those Fairfields have the highest concealed weapons per capita, or they have the lowest tolerance for vagrancy, panhandling, or whatnot, then when people come traipsing through Solano County on Highway 80, they're going to hear about Fairfield and they're going to say, let's just keep on going.
A little concern on Measure P. What's your stance on Measure P?
All right. So Measure P is the extension of the, quote, temporary tax that was passed in 2012. So in 2012, it was a recession. We were coming off a great recession. In addition, we had the redevelopment was just hard booted off. I disagree with the Jerry Brown approach of how it was shut down. I agree with the shutdown, just it was too abrupt and too enough time to untangle the mess that was redevelopment. But that was 4 years ago. It was approved for a temporary 5-year year term. My concern with the renewal was several of them. So back in 2012, when we were told, oh, we need to pass Measure P or else we're going to have to lay off 17 police officers, okay, or close this park, or there was a bucket of services that temporary fund was going to cover until the economy recovered and we were all better off. Well, now they're back 4 years later. They have the same propaganda, but this time, if we don't pass Measure P, we're going to have to lay 30 to 40 cops off and close 3 parks and all this other stuff. Now, I looked at that and with my financial eye, and I said, wait a minute, that means you put new long-term labor agreements on the backs of a temporary revenue stream. And no business organization would ever do that. If I get a one-time, if you get a profit-sharing bonus or a bonus from work, you're not going to go out and start funding a new house or a new car. You may repaint your house or go out on a nice vacation, but it's a one-time revenue source. You use it to bolster one-time projects. So that was my first red flag for me. It's like you put new long-term obligations on that. But additionally, I looked at the budget overall, and in 2012 fiscal year, the overall expenditures for the city were about $64 million. Now, looking at the budget through the fiscal year 2019 to 2020, they plan to spend over $94 million. So that's almost a 50% boost in spending. Without Measure P, they still have more money than they did in 2012 because both property tax revenue and standard sales tax revenue has increased since then. So that tells me that there is no emergency. Yes, their budget would have to be cut, but as far as net revenues, they have more in the next couple of years than they did in 2012. So my question to the voters that I implore you to ask is, will we be getting 50% better service? And it's up to the city, if they want our money, to demonstrate beyond a shadow of doubt that they will. But there's other things that, so number one is the 1%, is that realistic in this community this year when we have Vacaville after a tax increase, Sazzoon after a tax increase, Vallejo after a tax increase, the counties after a tax increase, and the states after about 8 different tax increases. It's a great community that allows each of us to blossom and pursue our definition of liberty. So I hope you will join me, please, at valuetothepeople.com.